I overheard my boyfriend bragging to his friends about cheating with my best friend, so I ghosted them both and then karma hit hard when she got pregnant. I'll try to keep this as organized as possible, but I'm still shaking with anger as I type this. I 27F have been with Johnny, 29M, for 2 years. We met at the local coffee shop where I work as a barista while building my own bakery business. He came in every morning for his coffee before heading to his construction job and always left a generous tip. At first, I just thought he was being nice, but then he started making small talk and asking about my day. Some background about me: I grew up in a conservative family in a small town about 3 hours from here. My parents run a successful real estate business and always pushed me and my siblings to get good educations. I moved to the city for college against their wishes. They wanted me to attend the local community college and join the family business. But I was determined to forge my own path. I got my degree in business with a focus on entrepreneurship. My dream was always to open my own bakery. My grandmother taught me to bake when I was young, and it's been my passion ever since. I started working at the coffee shop right after graduation to learn the ins and outs of running a food service business. That's where I met Johnny. He would come in at exactly 6:30 a.m. every morning, order the same thing, large black coffee with an extra shot, and chat with me for a few minutes before heading to work. After about 2 months of this routine, he finally asked me out. I was hesitant at first. He wasn't the type of guy I usually dated. He had dropped out of college after 1 semester, worked various construction jobs, and hung out with a pretty rough crowd. My best friend Tabby, 26F, was actually the one who convinced me to give him a chance. We've been best friends since freshman year of college when we were randomly assigned as roommates. We clicked instantly and stayed roommates all 4 years. She's like the sister I never had. When I told her about Johnny asking me out, she said I needed to stop being so judgmental and give the working class hero a shot. Tabby has been dating Kurt, 31M, for about 3 years. He's a successful software developer and totally different from Johnny, but they seem to get along okay at first. Kurt was always a bit wary of Johnny though. He said something felt off about him but could never put his finger on what exactly. I brushed it off as him being overprotective. He's treated me like a little sister ever since Tabby introduced us. My parents were less subtle about their disapproval. When I brought Johnny home for Christmas last year, my dad pulled me aside and said I was wasting my potential on a blue-collar nobody. I defended Johnny fiercely. He might not have a degree, but he worked hard and had dreams of starting his own construction company someday. We had huge fights about it and I ended up leaving early that Christmas. The first year and a half with Johnny was amazing. He was attentive, romantic, and always made time for me despite his long work hours. He would surprise me with my favorite pastries from different bakeries around the city, saying he was doing market research for my future shop. He took me on weekend trips to nearby towns, saying he wanted to show me different architecture styles for inspiration. He even started hinting about rings and marriage. The only real issue was his friends from the construction crew. Most of them were guys who couldn't hold down steady jobs and were always involved in some kind of drama. They would show up at his apartment at all hours asking for money or favors. Johnny would always help them out, saying they were just going through rough patches and needed support. I admired his loyalty even though I thought they were taking advantage of him. Things started changing about 6 months ago. Johnny began working later and later, saying he was taking on extra side jobs to save money. He was always too tired to go out when we did have time together. He stopped talking about our future plans and would change the subject when I brought up moving in together. He also started getting really protective of his phone, taking it with him even to the bathroom and always keeping it face down. I noticed Tabby acting different too. She started canceling our weekly coffee dates or showing up late and distracted. She said work was crazy busy. She's an office manager at a law firm, and she was pulling extra hours. I believed her because she'd never given me reason not to trust her before. Last week changed everything. I had just finished my morning shift and decided to surprise Johnny at his apartment. He had seemed really stressed lately and I wanted to cheer him up. I made his favorite cookies, double chocolate chip with sea salt, and headed over around 2 p.m. He had told me he was working until 6 that day, but I saw his truck in the parking lot. As I walked up to his door, I heard several male voices and loud laughter. I recognized his work friends and was about to knock when I heard my name. Johnny was in the middle of telling them how he'd been hooking up with Tabby behind my back for months. He laughed about how clueless I was, not noticing anything even when they would leave parties early together or when she started bringing him lunch at job sites. His friends were all laughing and congratulating him on scoring with Tabby. One of them asked if he was going to leave me for her. Johnny said hell no, he needed a respectable girlfriend for his business image and I was perfect for that with my college degree and good family. But Tabby was more his speed for having fun. I felt like someone had dropped a ton of bricks on my chest. I couldn't breathe. The cookies slipped from my hands and shattered on his welcome mat. I ran to my car and somehow made it home through tears. I spent that night alternating between crying and throwing up. The next morning, I blocked both of them on everything: phone, social media, email. I blocked all of Johnny's friends who knew about their affair too. I called my boss and switched to evening shifts at the coffee shop so Johnny couldn't find me there. I warned my coworkers not to tell him anything about my schedule. Johnny showed up at the shop several times looking confused and asking why I wasn't responding to his messages. My coworkers told him I had quit. He tried reaching me through mutual friends, but I had already told them what happened. Even the friends who didn't fully believe me agreed to not pass messages from him. Tabby sent me dozens of emails with subject lines like "Please let me explain" and "I'm so sorry." I deleted them all without reading past the preview. She tried to get Kurt to talk to me, but I ignored his messages too. I couldn't deal with anyone connected to either of them. It's been a week now. I alternate between rage and devastating sadness. My parents were right about Johnny all along, but I was too stubborn to see it. At least I found out before we got engaged or moved in together like we had been planning. I'm throwing myself into work and my bakery business plans. I've already signed up for a small business workshop and started looking at potential locations. Focusing on my goals is the only thing keeping me sane right now. I know I'll eventually have to deal with seeing them around town since we live in the same area and have overlapping social circles. But right now I just want to be left alone to process this betrayal. How do you ever trust anyone again after your boyfriend and best friend stab you in the back? Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone for the supportive comments and messages. Reading your similar stories helped me feel less alone during these past 2 weeks. Some absolutely insane things have happened since my last post, and I need to get it all out. Yesterday started normally enough. I was at work, still doing evening shifts to avoid Johnny, when Sarah, a mutual friend from college, came rushing in. She looked really upset and asked if we could talk after my shift. I was hesitant because Sarah is still friends with Tabby, but she insisted it was important. We met at a diner nearby after I got off work. Sarah ordered coffee but didn't touch it, which was my first clue something was seriously wrong. She told me she had been at a birthday party for another college friend the night before when everything blew up. Apparently, Tabby had been acting weird all evening, barely touching her drink and running to the bathroom every few minutes. During dinner, she suddenly started throwing up and got really dizzy. Someone suggested she might be pregnant, and Tabby burst into tears and confessed everything. She's about 10 weeks pregnant. With Johnny's baby. She had stopped taking birth control months ago without telling him because she thought getting pregnant would make him leave me for her. Sarah said Tabby was hysterical, saying Johnny wasn't answering her calls and she didn't know what to do. But here's where it gets even crazier. Kurt was at the party too. He had been in the bathroom when Tabby started confessing, but he walked in right as she was telling everyone how long she'd been sleeping with Johnny. Sarah said the look on his face was terrifying. He didn't say a word, just grabbed his keys and left. Kurt apparently drove straight to the Red Lion, this dive bar where Johnny and his construction buddies always hang out. He found Johnny there with his usual crowd, drinking and playing pool like he didn't have a care in the world. Now, Kurt is usually this really calm, logical software developer type. The kind of guy who solves problems with spreadsheets and never loses his cool. But according to the bartender, who called Sarah right after it happened, Kurt walked straight up to Johnny and just started swinging. He caught Johnny completely off guard and got in several good hits before anyone could react. Johnny ended up with a broken nose, 2 black eyes, and possibly some cracked ribs. His friends finally pulled Kurt off him, but not before Kurt screamed about the pregnancy for everyone in the bar to hear. Instead of staying to deal with the situation, Johnny did what he does best, ran away. He got in his truck and peeled out of the parking lot, leaving his friends to deal with the angry boyfriend of the woman he knocked up. But Kurt wasn't done. He drove back to the party where Tabby was still crying and trying to get sympathy from our old college friends. Sarah said Kurt walked in, dead calm now, and announced to the whole room that his wife, apparently they had secretly gotten married at the courthouse last year while planning a bigger wedding, had been cheating on him with my boyfriend for months and was now pregnant. He looked Tabby in the eye and told her he wanted a divorce, then listed every lie she had told him over the past months, all the late nights at work and lunch meetings that were really hookups with Johnny. He exposed how she played the supportive best friend to me while sleeping with my boyfriend behind my back. Then he just walked out, leaving Tabby sobbing in front of all our friends. Sarah stayed at the party long enough to hear Tabby admit that she and Johnny had been hooking up unprotected for months because she told him she was on birth control. But she had actually stopped taking it back in January, thinking a baby would force Johnny to commit to her. After Sarah told me all this, I went home and had about an hour of peace before Tabby showed up at my apartment. She kept banging on the door and crying about how she made a terrible mistake and needed her best friend. I texted her once, "You lost the right to call me your best friend when you started sleeping with my boyfriend. Leave or I'm calling the police." She left, but then started texting from different numbers all night. Saying she was sorry, she messed up, she needs me, she's scared about the baby. I blocked every number and finally had to turn my phone off. This morning I woke up to a voicemail from Kurt. He apologized for not telling me sooner about his suspicions. Said he had noticed weird tensions and looks between Johnny and Tabby for months but didn't want to accuse them without proof. I called him back and told him he has nothing to apologize for. They fooled us both completely. The latest update from Sarah is that Johnny has apparently skipped town. He cleaned out his apartment last night and told his landlord he got a job offer in another city. Everyone knows he's really running from Tabby's pregnancy and Kurt's anger. His friends are trying to claim he just needed a fresh start, but come on. Tabby is staying with her parents and telling everyone Johnny will come around once he processes the news. She really thinks he's going to step up and be a father. She clearly doesn't know him as well as she thought. I know I should feel worse about all this, but honestly, watching karma hit them both so hard feels like justice. Johnny lost his friends, got his ass kicked, and had to flee town. Tabby lost her husband, her friends, and is pregnant by a man who abandoned her the second things got real. I'm still processing everything, but I feel strangely calm. Like the universe is showing me I made the right choice by walking away when I did. I've blocked everyone except Kurt and Sarah on everything. I'm focusing on my bakery plans and trying to move forward. Update 2. I wasn't planning to post again, but some shocking new information has come to light. Last night, I got a series of messages from Mike and Dave, 2 guys from Johnny's construction crew. They said they couldn't live with the guilt anymore and wanted to show me something. Apparently, after Johnny fled town, his friends started feeling bad about their part in covering up his affair. Mike and Dave sent me hundreds of screenshots of group chats and private messages between Johnny, Tabby, and the crew going back 8 months, way longer than I thought the affair was happening. The messages showed Johnny and Tabby coordinating their meetups in detail. They had this whole system worked out. Tabby would tell Kurt she was working late at the law firm while telling me she was too busy for our coffee dates. Meanwhile, she was actually at Johnny's apartment. Johnny would tell me he had early morning jobs or late-night construction emergencies when he was really meeting Tabby for breakfast or late-night hookups. The most disgusting part was how they joked about Kurt and me in these messages. They called us the clueless power couple and laughed about how I was always defending Johnny to my parents while he was sneaking around with my best friend. Tabby would brag about how Kurt was so trusting that she could say she was working overtime and he'd just bring her dinner at the office, not knowing she had already eaten with Johnny. Mike also revealed something that made me sick to my stomach. Johnny never had any intention of leaving me for Tabby. In their group chat, he told his friends he needed to keep me around because I was good for business. Apparently, when he bid on construction projects for wealthier clients, having an educated girlfriend from a good family made him seem more trustworthy and professional. Meanwhile, Tabby was his fun girl who was more his class level. The screenshots also showed discussions about Tabby's pregnancy. She had stopped taking birth control back in January without telling Johnny. She would send messages to the group chat about how she was sure a baby would make Johnny realize they were meant to be together. When she first told Johnny about the pregnancy, he accused her of trying to trap him and blocked her number. I forwarded all the screenshots to Kurt. He deserved to know exactly how long and how deliberately they had been deceiving us. He called me after reading them and told me something interesting: he's filing for divorce. Turns out Tabby had convinced him to do a quick courthouse wedding last year, saying they could plan a big ceremony later. Kurt thinks now that she did it to have legal rights to his money and property. But here's the real kicker: Johnny didn't leave town for a job opportunity like his friends claimed. According to Mike and Dave, he had been stealing materials from work sites and selling them on the side. That's why he was always working late even when he wasn't with Tabby. His boss had started noticing inventory discrepancies and was launching an investigation. Johnny ran before he could get caught. The company is pressing charges for theft, but they can't find him. He's apparently using a different name now and working under the table at construction sites in another state. Mike showed me messages where Johnny bragged about how easy it was to start over since most small construction companies don't do background checks. After seeing all these messages, I finally feel like I have real closure. Every doubt I had about cutting them off completely has been erased. They weren't just having an affair, they were actively enjoying deceiving Kurt and me. They got off on lying to our faces and laughing about it behind our backs. The friend group has completely fractured over this. Most people have cut ties with Tabby, especially after seeing the screenshots of her mocking Kurt's trust in her. She's still living with her parents and telling everyone Johnny will come back once he clears his head. Her mom keeps trying to reach out to mutual friends for support, but no one wants to get involved. Kurt is doing better. He's focusing on his software development work and says the divorce should be final in a few months since they don't have kids yet, and had a prenup. He's already talking about moving to Austin for a fresh start once everything is settled. I actually feel sorry for Tabby's baby. That poor kid is going to be born into such a mess, with a mother who tried to use pregnancy as manipulation and a father who's literally a fugitive. I hope for the child's sake that Johnny stays far away. Update 3. This will be my final update since I'm finally ready to close this chapter of my life. A lot has happened in the past 3 months, but for once, most of it is positive. My bakery business is really taking off. I'm now supplying pastries to 6 local cafes and have a solid contract with a high-end hotel for their breakfast buffet. The owner of the coffee shop where I work has been incredibly supportive. She's actually offering to partner with me to open my own bakery cafe next year. We're already looking at potential locations in the Arts District. I did have one uncomfortable encounter with Tabby's mom at the grocery store last week. She cornered me in the produce section to tell me how hard this pregnancy has been on Tabby. Apparently she's having complications due to stress and her doctor put her on bed rest. Her mom tried to guilt me by saying Tabby needs her best friend now more than ever, especially since she's having a girl. She also mentioned that Tabby wants me to be in the baby's life since I used to be like an aunt to her other nieces and nephews. I told her mom firmly that while I wish Tabby a healthy pregnancy, I want nothing to do with her or the baby. That child is not my responsibility, and Tabby lost any right to my support when she chose to betray me. Kurt's divorce from Tabby was finalized last week. The prenup he insisted on really saved him. Tabby tried to contest it but her lawyer advised against it since there was solid proof of her infidelity. Kurt got to keep his house and investments, though he did agree to pay her a small settlement just to get it over with. He's accepted a job offer in Austin and moves next month. We still talk occasionally and support each other through the healing process, but strictly as friends. He's been a good support system since we both understand exactly how it feels to be betrayed by people we trusted completely. As for Johnny, his former boss filed charges for the stolen materials. Apparently over $50,000 worth of supplies disappeared during his employment. The police have a warrant out but haven't been able to locate him. Through the construction crew grapevine, I heard he's working in Arizona under a different name and already cheating on his new girlfriend there. Some people never change. I started dating again, very casually. I met a nice guy at one of the cafes I supply to and we've been on a few dates. He owns his own business and seems very genuine, but I'm taking things extremely slow. I'm much more aware of red flags now and not afraid to walk away at the first sign of dishonesty. My parents have been incredibly supportive through all this. They never once said I told you so about Johnny. Instead, they've been helping me develop my business plan and even offered to invest in my bakery. Our relationship is stronger now than it's been in years. The hardest part is still running into people from our old friend group. Most have chosen sides, either cutting Tabby off completely or trying to stay neutral. A few still hang out with her and give me dirty looks for abandoning her during her pregnancy. I just ignore them. They can enable her victim act if they want, but I know the truth. Sometimes I catch myself missing the friendship I thought I had with Tabby. Then I remember all those screenshots of her laughing about deceiving me, and any nostalgia disappears. A real friend would never betray you like that, let alone actively enjoy causing you pain. I've made new friends through my business connections, other young entrepreneurs who understand ambition and loyalty. My life is actually better now than it was before all this happened. Sometimes losing toxic people is the best thing that can happen to you. Thank you for all the support, Reddit. Your advice helped me stay strong when I was tempted to give them another chance. I won't be updating again unless something major happens, but I want you all to know your comments help me more than you can imagine.